Hollywood keeps remaking Jane Austen with TikTok pacing and beige lighting. Meanwhile, the 1980s quietly gave us the best period dramas nobody talks about. One of them stars Judi Dench, another nearly outclasses Out of Africa, and one might be the darkest World War II love story ever put on TV. You've been watching the wrong stuff. This is one of the best Trollope adaptations ever made, and it still holds up beautifully. It's a 7-part BBC serial based on the first 2 novels, The Warden and Barchester Towers, and honestly, if you're a fan of period drama, this one's a real treat. It's warm, clever, rich with character detail, and you'll catch something new every time you watch it. Alan Rickman, still young and dashing here, gives one of his early standout performances as Obadiah Slope. If you only know him as the noble Colonel Brandon in Sense and Sensibility, this role is the polar opposite. He's sly, self-serving, and impossible to look away from. Every single member of the cast fits their role perfectly. You've got Geraldine McEwen and Nigel Hawthorne alongside Rickman, and there's not a weak performance in sight. Even the smallest supporting roles feel alive and real. The language is crisp and expressive, the diction is crystal clear, and the whole thing is carried on this beautifully formal tone that just suits the world of Trollope so well. And visually, it's gorgeous. Shot around Peterborough Cathedral and its surroundings, it's steeped in atmosphere and period detail. You really do feel like you've been dropped into the clerical world of Barchester, watching all the drama and scheming unfold from the best seat in the house. Judi Dench. That really could be the whole review right there, but this one deserves a proper spotlight. Love in a Cold Climate is an 8-part adaptation of Nancy Mitford's novels The Pursuit of Love and Love in a Cold Climate, set in the interwar years between 1924 and 1940. It follows the romantic disasters and social adventures of 2 upper-class cousins, Linda and Fanny, moving between country estates and London drawing rooms. It's sharp, funny, and surprisingly biting in how it picks apart British class and gender expectations. Lucy Gutteridge and Rosalind Landor are excellent in the lead roles. Gutteridge plays Linda with just the right mix of impulsiveness and charm, while Landor brings a quiet intelligence to Fanny that really anchors the series. And then, of course, there's Judi Dench as Aunt Sadie, warm, dry, and quietly hilarious. What sets this apart is the tone. It's affectionate but never sappy, witty but never smug. The costumes are spot on, the settings feel lived in, and it really captures the sense of a world slipping out of its old rhythms as the Second World War looms in the background. It's a character piece first and foremost, and one of the best period miniseries to come out of the early 80s. Yes, it belies its age, but if you appreciate well-crafted dialogue, period-accurate detail, and a cast that knows exactly what it's doing, this one's a gem. This is a 4-part BBC drama based on the real-life memoirs of Christabel Bielenberg, an Englishwoman married to a German lawyer during the rise of Hitler. It stars a young Elizabeth Hurley in one of her first major roles, and the performance is surprisingly grounded. The story follows Christabel through Germany in the 1930s and into the war. She becomes a German citizen, starts a family, and when the war breaks out, she ends up in a mountain village after her husband is arrested for helping plot to assassinate Hitler. It's an intense story, but what makes it really stand out is how human it feels. The focus isn't on war strategy or politics, it's on day-to-day life, fear, doubt, quiet resistance. The choice to have all the German characters speak in English accents might sound odd, but it works brilliantly. It strips away the usual distance and makes these people, these German civilians, feel familiar, relatable. There's a scene where a Nazi officer gently teaches Christabel's children to salute Hitler, and because he's speaking in a gentle British voice, it lands differently. It's chilling in the best way. Hurley doesn't overplay anything. Her performance is thoughtful and honest, and you can feel the emotional weight of what Christabel goes through. There's one moment in particular. She's sitting beside an older woman on the street as the bombs start falling, and the two of them just break down together. It's raw, simple, and incredibly moving. This one is such a gem. 10 episodes adapted by Andrew Davies, who, let's be honest, has been everywhere on British period TV for decades. This was based on 2 Ronald Delderfield novels, and it stars Kevin McNally and Jenny Seagrove. The story follows a poor but bright young man from the countryside and Diana, the fiercely independent daughter of a wealthy landowner. Their lives stretch from the 1920s through post-war Britain. It's one of those slow-burn love stories that twists and turns its way across decades, class barriers, and emotional wreckage. You spend the whole time hoping love will win out, just like in the books, but I won't spoil what actually happens. Some might call it a bit cheesy or too obvious, but real romance usually is. Davies takes what could have been standard material and lifts it, makes it feel modern, emotionally grounded, and the supporting cast is packed with great British actors. Cribb is one of those under-the-radar period dramas that quietly does everything right. Set in late Victorian era, it stars Alan Doby as Sergeant Cribb from Scotland Yard. Cribb's not flashy, he's smart, he's observant, and he's stuck working for social climbing idiots who got promoted through connections instead of competence, but he handles it all with this dry, understated wit that makes him incredibly watchable. The show's tone comes straight from Cribb himself. He's humane, fair, and not above poking fun at the mess around him. The stories are quirky and never repetitive. Every episode feels different in setting, tone, even theme. The period details are really well done. Costumes, language, behavior, it all feels right. And it's clear the writers and production team went out of their way to keep it authentic. It also pulls in some solid guest stars, and it's suitable for family viewing too. 11 episodes based on John Mortimer's novel, set in a quiet English village, and it spans post-World War II all the way into the 1970s. It all starts with the death of Reverend Simeon Simcox, a kind-hearted socialist village vicar. But then comes the shock. He's left his entire fortune to Leslie Titmuss, a rising conservative politician. No one can understand why. Simeon's 2 sons, one's a novelist, the other's a country doctor, start digging into the mystery. And that takes us back through 30 years of life in the village. Class conflict, post-war social change, the decline of the old aristocracy, and the rise of new money. It's all in here. Mortimer based a lot of it on his own life, growing up in Buckinghamshire, working as a divorce lawyer, and later as a barrister. It's gripping from start to finish, and for something that originally aired on ITV, it's held up incredibly well. One of the strongest British dramas of the 80s, no doubt about it. This one's a real gem for anyone who loves Edwardian and suffrage-era history. Nancy Astor is a 9-part BBC drama that follows the life of Lady Nancy Astor, the American-born woman who made history as the first female MP to take a seat in the British Parliament. It starts in Virginia, where Nancy Langhorne grew up, and takes you through her move to England, her marriage into the wealthy Astor family, and her unlikely leap into politics. She wasn't just the first to get elected, she was the first to serve. In 1919, she won the Plymouth-Sutton by-election and walked straight into a parliament full of men who didn't want her there. And she didn't just sit quietly either. The series doesn't shy away from showing her fiery wit, the way she held her own, and the resistance she had to push through. There's a great performance here from a very young Pierce Brosnan as Robert Gould Shaw, Nancy's first husband. And the production really went the extra mile. They actually filmed on location at her birthplace in Virginia and at Cliveden House in England, where Nancy hosted some of the most famous political guests of her time. This is a 7-part miniseries about one of the most dramatic rivalries in exploration history, the race to the South Pole between Captain Robert Scott and Roald Amundsen. Set between 1910 and 1912, it shows both expeditions side by side. On one side, Scott's ill-fated Terra Nova expedition, plagued by bad decisions, terrible weather, and just plain bad luck. On the other, Amundsen's Norwegian team, precise, focused, and completely built around dog sled efficiency. The contrast is brutal, and it's what makes this series so compelling. Martin Shaw plays Scott with real weight and dignity, and you've got early appearances from Hugh Grant and Bill Nighy, who both pop up in supporting roles. The attention to historical accuracy is incredible, with much of it shot in real icefield locations that look cold just to watch. It's also adapted from Roland Huntford's book, which takes a more critical view of Scott and a more practical admiration for Amundsen. This one is a 4-part miniseries about Lord Nelson, but what makes it different is how it's told, from the people who knew him. Each episode comes from a different point of view. You've got his wife, Fanny Nelson, who gives you a look at the toll his fame and infidelity took on their marriage. Then there's Sir William Hamilton, whose wife Emma became Nelson's lover and caused one of the biggest social scandals of the time. You also get Nelson's loyal flag captain, Hardy, and finally, a regular seaman who brings you below deck at Trafalgar. That last episode is especially powerful. It doesn't give you the big sweeping shots of ships colliding or the usual naval spectacle. It keeps you down below, with one gun crew working in the cramped dark as chaos explodes above them. It's raw, tense, and deeply human. And of course, it all builds to Nelson's death, one of the most poignant scenes you'll find in any historical series. Kenneth Cawley, who plays Nelson, went so far as to strap his right arm behind his back months before filming, just so he could move and fight like someone who'd truly lost the limb. That kind of detail runs through the whole series. Set in 1913, just before World War I, this mini-series follows a British family that leaves behind the comforts of England to start a coffee plantation in colonial Kenya. 7 episodes, based on Elizabeth Huxley's memoirs, and it's exactly the kind of series that slowly pulls you into another world. Visually, it's stunning. They shot it on location in Kenya, and it shows. You get the sense of space, of wildness, of isolation, but also that strange Edwardian optimism these settlers brought with them. The costumes, the colors, the atmosphere, they absolutely nailed it. It got BAFTA nominations for a reason. There's something so honest about how it portrays the early settler experience. You see the culture clashes, the personal struggles, the fear, the wonder, and it's all told with care, without rushing, without turning it into a history lesson. If you've ever loved Out of Africa, this has the same kind of rhythm, but with a little more edge, a little more realism. It's a shame they never continued the story with Huxley's later memoirs, because when this one ends, you're left wanting more. This is one of those BBC period dramas that quietly does everything right. 4 episodes, set in the industrial heart of Victorian England, specifically the potteries in Staffordshire, and it's based on Arnold Bennett's novel. The story follows Anna Tellwright, who's just turned 21 and suddenly inherits a fortune. Sounds glamorous, but she's stuck in a strict Methodist community under the thumb of her controlling miserly. Peter Davison plays Henry Miners, one of the suitors circling around now that Anna's a wealthy young woman. But what this story really focuses on is Anna's slow realization that money doesn't equal freedom, and that independence comes with painful trade-offs. It's a beautifully restrained adaptation. Ken Taylor's screenplay keeps everything grounded. You really feel the pressure Anna's under, social, emotional, spiritual. It's a quiet kind of drama, but the emotions run deep. This one has a completely different flavor. Set in Australia during the late 1800s, All the Rivers Run is based on Nancy Cato's novel, and it's full of riverboats, wild landscapes, and long, slow-burning drama. Philadelphia Gordon, Delhi for short, is a young English girl who survives a shipwreck off the Victorian coast and ends up growing up in Australia. She becomes part of the riverboat world, running a paddle steamer on the Murray River, and the show follows her life as it moves between rough frontier life and the more refined world of Melbourne society. You get to watch her relationships grow, fall apart, start again, especially with Brenton Edwards, the boat captain who's always just a little too complicated. The cinematography is beautiful. You can feel the heat, the dust, the water. The series never rushes through its plot. It gives space for the characters to grow, for the world to feel lived in. That kind of pacing is rare now, and it works so well here. And yes, the ending's a bit quick compared to the rest of it, but it doesn't take away from how good the journey is. The cast is strong, the setting is unique, and the tone is just right for people who love period drama that isn't afraid to slow down and show you something real.